Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle. I hope you guys are having an awesome year. It is just starting out, and I have a wonderful guest who is a musician, and this is not her native state. So this is why it's so important that I have her on the Billionaire Lifestyle. Now, one of the things that I keep going over is I pray that I don't mispronounce her name, and her name is Kaliyani. How are you today?
I am doing great. Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. I'm very happy.
Thank you. I mean, we've been trying to connect for the last couple of weeks, but due to some environmental issues in California and just the travels, it's been very difficult. But I am so thankful that we are blessed with your presence today. So I want to ask you about your journey to where you got to your musicianship, because it wasn't something that like your family kind of was a part of your life. It was kind of like a discovery to you. Can you tell me a little bit about that scenario?
Yes, definitely. It wasn't something I had planned. It was not the main focus of my life at any time. I actually had never envisioned or dreamt of being a singer. It wasn't my approach, and I don't come from a lineage of musicians or singers. It was a very unique discovery that came later in life. And how I came to it, I guess depends on the lens you are wearing and how you're looking at life, but it was a progression of things. I had a deep awakening around 2003, 2004. I was having a lot of Kundalini experiences, and I was basically visited by the Divine Feminine, under the guise of Kuan Yin, which is the goddess of compassion. And I didn't even know anything about her. I didn't know. She appeared in my dreams and surrounded me everywhere. I would see her through glass windows and things like that without really knowing who it was and what it was doing there. But then the messages started coming and coming and coming. I was going through a deep transformation in my life. It was the end of my marriage, and I got led towards a new path in spirituality, and I step by step was guided towards working with media as well. And I had done a couple of projects with Stargate Alliance, which is my conscious media company. And I was doing a lot of research for a documentary I wanted to create on the Divine Feminine. And during that process, I was led towards this incredible attraction. It was like a force that was leading me towards Samaria and Sumerian heritage. And I got absorbed into that in a way that it was hard to explain. Certain names and certain words and certain deities from their pantheon just kept ringing in my head in a way that it was almost like a memory of something, but I couldn't quite fully remember. And then I came across their creationary myth, which gave birth to my first track, which is Namu's Invocation. And that took a life of its own. It became so big, and I created a music video. It was touching so many people so deeply. And it was that voice of the Divine Feminine that wanted to come through, and it was so powerful. I was feeling it so intensely in my body, and I was in the process of creating the documentary, but I ended up not being able to hold back this voice that just wanted to be expressed about this period of time, this myth, this creationary myth. And Inanna is a second generation from that. It's continuing to manifest itself. And it was in a linear way, in an objective worldview. I was allowed to create the music because I was feeling that the music was an extremely important. It's the emotional content of any film. Without music, the movie is completely unemotional. And I knew that to invoke the feeling tones that needed to be expressed and invoked, music was a profound tool. And I knew what kind of music needed to be there. I just, and I know the type of music, and I knew that licensing was very difficult for some of the music I wanted to have there.
So did you have the music created? Did you write the music or have it written for you, or was it something that you heard with your being and you were just trying to express that?
Yes, it was a mix of that, because I'm not a classically trained musician. I play percussion. I can play Native American flute and a little bit of frame drum, but I don't. I was never classically trained. So what happened was, as that one night I was into meditation and I heard I was supposed to create the music for this documentary. And I couldn't believe it. I was clearly, not ready to do that, and I didn't think I could do that. And that voice just coming through. You have to do it. It's you. It's you. It's you. And so, not long after that, I met a composer who is also a filmmaker. I became a partner, in many projects now.
That's
and
Riz?
That's Riz Story.
Yeah.
Yes, and he's my composer. And I went and I met him, and we had a couple of meetings, and I told him what was coming through me, and I said, do you mind if I sit with you during your composition? Because I need to know that you're going the direction that I'm hearing, that I'm feeling.
That makes sense.
And so, yes, and, I sat down with him. It was about 3.5 hours long, and at the end we had the piece, and it was a beautiful co-creative process. He's extraordinary in translating what I'm hearing, and where I want to go. And
are the only compositions you have, or do you have the two compositions, or is there something in the works, or
well, the only two released are these ones. I have
and that's Tears for
tracks.
Inanna and
Tears for Inanna, yeah.
And Namu's Invocation, excuse me.
Namu's Invocation, yeah.
Because
I have. Mm-hmm.
When I first saw the titles, and when I first became aware of your presence and started digesting, I immediately understood that the words were from a different time. And so the first thing I did was Google them. And as I said earlier, I've been studying about Sumerians, their connection to the universe in the last about 2-3 weeks, which was really all made me just go, wow, because then when I looked up the titles and they fall right in. And I was like, wow, that's really in alignment with, where I'm at right now. And then I heard how broad, how expansive your voice and the music was. I was like, wow, I really have to speak to her now.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you guys going with it? What's your next step?
That's a good question. I feel like I don't make a lot of plans. I just follow. I feel like like the old saying goes, we make plans and God laughs, because I feel like, a lot of the most beautiful work and most beautiful things I've done in my life have not been something necessarily that I planned and that I, set a goal line for me to be, to see, to be, and it's been very pretty much arranged by the universe, and it's sort of like an invitation.
So you live in the flow, pretty much, and an inspired life.
Absolutely. I love that word, flow, because it's really what I like to be. And there's always a little bit of an impression of plan, where we just keep following the next and the next, footstep along the road. And I'm never in a hurry. That's something that people are, around my life just, we have learned that I'm never in a hurry to put anything out. I think my commitment to the integrity of the delivery is more important to me than just delivering something.
Was this something that you developed? Were you always this way? Because you're Brazilian born, and
yes.
You came to this country, which is so on the go, achieve, more. And you have a spiritual sense that is quite opposite of what this country kind of stands for at this point in time. How did was it a progression for you, or was it something that was always inside of you and you just really letting it out now? I
think I could say that it's a little bit of both. In a sense, I always had a very mystic nature. I grew up in Brazil, and I was exposed to a lot of spirituality, many different cosmologies, spiritual cosmologies from, our heritage is very rich in Brazil. We have a lot of shamans, you name it, across the board. And because I was a very spiritually curious child, and I had witnessed a lot of trans-channeling in my family, and sometimes in other circles, relatives or friends of relatives, and grew up in the middle, but I have sisters and cousins, and they didn't have the same curiosities I did. I was extremely curious about the architecture of spirit and reality of God, and I was very much searching from a very young age. So I feel like, for example, mystic writers like Khalil Gibran, I read the entire collection when I was 13, between 13 and 14. Then I went into yoga. I was already doing yoga at age 15, 16, 17. I was doing hatha yoga with, and my teacher was a high initiate Maji of the Rosicrucian Society, and I was really into everything occult that you can imagine, mystic and spiritual. And I believed that I could integrate everything. My goal was to bring integration to all these paths and to find one core of truth, because I felt that everything seemed separate when it wasn't meant to be separate.
Yeah.
And I just felt a really deep soul longing, and also an intimate connection to all of what I was reading, and as if I had some memory from past lives or something that was just a continuing scope, a continuing search of the soul to find answers.
Let me ask you something here. So obviously you had your existence before the music came in and changed your life, which is kind of what, I'm always promoting is life is not one thing, and we will pivot several times in our existence on this planet. So what was your life consisting of prior? Because I see that you got your formal education, which is your BA in psychology, and you attended college in California. But you are originally Brazilian born. When did you come to the United States?
I also have a master's in spiritual psychology as well, which is another very interesting degree. It's a very unique degree, and it's only offered by University of Santa Monica, and there are people from all over the world coming here, from Australia, from England, once a month to do this program, and it's a 2-year program. Mm-hmm. And it was very, very transforming. It was definitely a catalyst for me to go into the second phase of my development spiritually as well. But there's many parts of my path, that have delivered me to different points in my life, to new things, new phases, new creations, new discoveries about myself.
Awesome.
So my life before the music, you mean? It depends what phase you're talking about, because
for most of us, we have, around the world, particularly in industrialized nations, you grow up, you always have an inkling of who you are to be. But we have this system in place on the planet that says, hey, you're supposed to grow up and you're supposed to get a job and you're supposed to go to school for something and you're supposed to do this and you're supposed to do that. Because it seems like this was a transformation, or actually not really a transformation, but a birthing of you, where you were just really coming out and being who you were meant to be. But sometimes we're slightly different individuals before that metamorphosis. Were you much different or markedly different than you are now spiritually and where you resonate on the planet?
I don't think so. I don't think I was very different than what I am today. And of course, keeping in mind that we are always evolving and we're always dynamically, hopefully, expanding our awareness, our consciousness, our knowledge, and how we apply things to our lives and our perspectives. But I don't think I was critically different in a way, because, as you know, I was already immersed and in deep spiritual search, and had gone through a lot of different progressions of that. And I was involved in creating conscious media already, and so I feel like this is a new octave of of my message, I would say. It's really the culmination, in a sense, of one of the it's one aspect of the culmination of my purpose, I would say. And everything that I do and that I have invested creation time, my creation in creating anything in the last, I'd say 15 years of my life has been into creating consciousness, enhancing consciousness on the planet, and particularly with an emerging focus on rebirthing the divine feminine consciousness back into our planetary consciousness, into our human conscience again, our cross-culturally, to the best of my ability. So everything I do these days, I also facilitate women's groups, to create a safe space for them to find their own spiritual voices and regain their divine authority. So I feel this is a place that we will gain a lot of progress and momentum, and we've been in the process of that for a while, and it's gaining more and more momentum, and it's a very important piece, I believe, of our history now for where we're headed.
Yeah. Can I diverge a little bit, because you're talking about, the women's, the feminine spirituality, and you also are a soul coach assisting and helping individuals for their own self-discovery and growth on their path. Can you explain a little bit about how that came into me? Because it seems like you have a really encompassed focus on this planet, but it reaches out in so many different directions. So when it comes to helping people in their own self-discovery journey and their own growth, how is that going, and what's your methods for these people?
Well, I had my life coach training with my master's in spiritual psychology program, and graduated in 2009, and I did some private coaching for a while. And with the whole revelation of the divine feminine that came to me from 2003, and there was a synthesis that came through. Remember between 2008 and 2009, on my second year program, I had the very, very strict disciplinary daily practice, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. I was extremely disciplined in nurturing my mind, body, soul, with activities daily, and I meditated twice a day. At the time, I was finishing my Kriya Bond training at Self-Realization Fellowship, and doing a lot of Kriya meditation. And in one of those moments of meditation, I sort of surrendered my life to my purpose, and in a very full-bodied feeling, like every cell of my being, I surrendered without fear to whatever the universe wanted me to be in service to, and more I was led towards this path. And then I did a training on it's called the 13 Moon Mystery School. Mm-hmm. It's a template of feminine spirituality that was created by Ariel Spilberry, and she trains women on facilitating, holding, spiritual space for developing our potential as spiritual beings. And this template can be used for men as well. It's not exclusively for women, but Ariel's work has been mostly focused on the women because, as you know, history for the last 6,000 years or so that we know of, women have been extricated from the high, potentially reaching
like the higher orders on in our society.
Higher order, yeah, priesthood, and they were really systematically contained in not only spiritually in all levels, educationally, as we all know. And so this is something that is a place that women have been longing to find, a place where they can fully attain their capacity as transmitters and receivers of divine knowledge. And so because religion as an institution is also dying, it's very important to find our place, as women in new templates. And I think men are looking for these templates as well because of
it seems
the failure in so many levels.
Yeah, it seems like we're in the midst of change, and because I always say, particularly recently, that we have some legs still in the 20th century, but the world is trying to progress fast out of it. But that 20th century, that old guard mentality is trying to steadfastly hang on to what this world has now. So you're absolutely right. And I applaud you for, being someone that someone can refer to when they need some awareness. What are all the places where people can find out more information about you, such as your website, Facebook, YouTube? Like your video has been seen over 2 million times or by 2 million people. So that people can soak in all of your works and your energy.
Yeah, my work as a facilitator is not visible. It's something just by word of mouth. There's a community in Los Angeles, and it's interesting because I'm navigating so many worlds right now. I'm being guided towards the music at this moment, and I'm also about to I'm producing a documentary on the recovery of the coral reefs in the planet. It's called Oceana. There is a website on that as well, and it's also a co-creative project with Riz Story, who is also a movie maker. And so we're trying to create a lot of transformation in the planet, and my coaching and group coaching is kind of taking a back seat right now. I don't have an online presence for that work, so I guess exploring the music is something you can find online. There's a page called Stargate Alliance on Facebook that has a lot of spiritual writing that I've been doing for over 10 years. And it's just different explorations. And that page is very popular. That's a place where you can find content. But if you're in Los Angeles, you can always reach out to me if you want to be part of my women's group. Wait
a minute. So that means I can't be a part of it.
Well, we actually do co-ed group gatherings here a few times a year in the Sacred Garden. I have a garden, and it's a place where the community comes together, and we do beautiful, beautiful gatherings that are very deep and very spiritual. And I hope to open someday to also do work with man. It's not something that I am closed off to. It's just that it's got to be one step at a time, and there's only one of me. And I feel that there is already so much that I am holding. And my calling, as you can see, has been to help women step out of their conditioned patterns of behavior that has been, imprinted by unfortunate historical agendas. That it's not that we don't want to work with men, or what's happening right now is we need to make the two pillars just as strong, or the tower is going to fall. And the way the tower is going to fall is our structures, our foundations are not stable, and the obvious way we can look at is how the planet is dying and how everything is dying because of what we call, quote unquote, a masculine patriarchal approach, which doesn't mean it's man. It means it's an attitude that's been adopted worldwide, that's become accepted, which is the dominance. It's the disrespect for softness, for nature, for love, for the part of us that is more feminine. And men and women alike have been entrained to become very masculine. And, it's a terrible thing that we have had to call it masculine and feminine because it's just energy.
So it's kind of like the yin and yang, but one of those is out of balance.
Out of balance. It's too much of one thing, too little of another. So the work that's been doing with women and the reawakening of the divine feminine is an essential part of creating this balance. And it's not just women having to rediscover their femininity, because we have been trained to be having to be very masculine in a masculine world. Basically, we're trying to transition between being an extremely, masculine, dominant world to being a more balanced one, where both men and women rediscovered the gifts of the divine feminine. And also, it's related to the desecration of sexuality, the sacredness of sexuality that was extricated from our consciousness as well. And Inanna is a huge part of that, because Inanna was the goddess that spoke of and educated us on lovemaking as an art and as a spiritual, holding spiritual high potential for you to attain higher levels of consciousness, because that was existing way back when, and little by little the historical agenda distorted everything to the point where Inanna became a dragon, and was slain by Marduk back in Babylonian times. But before that, for 4,000 years, she was idolized and loved, and she was the longest reigning goddess of all times. And she was sovereign, she was independent, she was intelligent, she was powerful, and she was also a high, priestess of sacred sexuality.
So I'm on your website, which is, let me spell this for everyone so that they get it correct. It's KALIYANI.com. And you have a lot of information there about your works, your art, and you've done a lot of things. I mean, just some of the articles that you've written concerning the spirituality of women, and your work with the Stargate Alliance. How do you have time to even breathe?
That's a great question, considering that I'm also a mother. It's not easy, but I guess, it's like I said, it's grace. I feel that a lot of my life, those things have come to me, and the red carpet was rolled. And I think this happens when you're really attuned to your purpose, and your purpose is not self-serving. I believe when we move from serving the self to serving the greater good, and we're doing this not just externally, where it appears to be that way to the outside world, but we're doing that from an authentic, loving place. It is your passion to help. When we feel that connection to the collective, and it's more important to us to create balance and harmony and save the planet and help the next of kin and help those who are downtrodden, those who've been lied to clear confusion, to create coherency. And all of that is not just serving you, it's serving all. What happens is there's some magic that happens. Yeah. People say, how do I manifest? You manifest by giving. You want love, you give love. You want abundance, you give abundance. You want people to serve you, serve people.
That is
you want
so
people
true.
To sacrifice for you, sacrifice for them. You can't just, it is an exchange. And I feel that because I've found this inside of me, and it's a burning love. I call it fierce love. It's burning, and it's fierce, and it's sometimes not so soft. It's actually very powerful, and it can be aggressive as well. But it's because, love has many faces, like the goddess Kali,
Yeah.
where everybody's so afraid of her because she's a threat to the ego. Her ugliness, her fierceness is not towards the good, it's towards whatever is impairing the good in us, which is our own ego. So I feel like there's been a lot of grace in my life where I do not have to fight very hard to obtain things or to have those opportunities. They come to me, and all I have to do is not be afraid to say yes. And sometimes I have to be careful because there's too many offers, and I have to tune in to what is really wanting to be expressed in the moment. So how do I do all of it? It is intense, but it's not as intense as it looks because it comes easy.
Because you're in the flow.
Exactly, and I'm led to the right places at the right time. And when things are delayed, I don't fight too much the current. I just let it go because it's not the moment.
Yep, that was a lesson that I recently learned because I'm a fighter. I was a fighter, and I would keep coming up against these obstacles. And then this is recent, and I kind of I forgot what the martial art is, where you use the momentum of the other. And I just said, you know what, I'm just going to be in the flow, and I'm going to let them use their own momentum, but I'm here for when they need it. So
yeah,
that's a beautiful
It's not
thing.
an easy thing, but it's very helpful. It's very helpful to master, to just really not have a lot of attachment to how you thought things should go, because the universe plans a lot better than we do usually.
So let me ask you something else. This is unrelated because you are in California, and California is, let's say there's a lot of smoke and fire there. How are you guys doing?
Well, I think most of it is subsided now, and it was intense. It affected a lot of our community, and got really close to quite a few friends of mine, and some of them actually got their houses completely burned down.
Oh.
Yeah, I had I had particularly a friend from the master's program I did that graduated with me, and his house burned down in Ojai.
Oh.
And he's having to rebuild his entire life from scratch. It's an initiation for sure. I think fire is an element of spirit. Fire represents spirit, even though our dogmatic church has made fire be something from hell in ancient times, and actually, Vedic astrology, Vedic Indian, Hinduist, and many other non-institutionalized philosophies, they see fire as a purifier and an emanation from spirit. Of course, just like when it's untamed, just like the energy of Kali, it can look like it's destructive. But nothing is really just black or white in this 3D world we live. Everything is gray, and there's not one thing that's just bad or just good. This fire has created opportunity for transformation that is very hard, a deep transformation in people. And it's a gauntlet, the gauntlet of fire. And there's a lot of purification that potentially was done energetically in the atmosphere, in the air, by just having all this fire burning, a lot of dross in the ethers that we can't even see, that could potentially have caused a lot more harm. Who is to say, what is really built into all this mysterious nature we live in, human nature, the world, and all the mystery that surrounds us. So it could be that this intense fire was important to clear some energetic dross.
So everything leads to, a transformation, but particularly in California with the fires. So now you have a method of rebirth going on. But we're running close on time here, and I really want to thank you so much for being on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. I'm going to ask you for a really quick, succinct message for the Billionaire Lifestyle audience, and I'm going to ask it to you in this form. If you were sitting on your couch and you were just doing what you do in your home and your doorbell rang and you went to the doorbell, to the door, and there, when you opened the door, was a 15-year-old you, and that 15-year-old you looked directly in your eyes and said, "What can you tell me to prepare me for the future?" What would you have to say?
Love yourself. Always. And let this love spread, because you can't give what you don't have.
Oh.
Never forget who you are as a soul, that you're perfect just the way you are.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. And this is how I typically close the show. Ladies and gentlemen, here's what you have to realize. At some point, you're probably going to go to sleep and you're going to wake up. And as most people do, they get in the shower and they get out the shower. And there's steam on the mirror. I want you to wipe that steam from the mirror. And I want you to take 2 minutes, just 2. Look in that mirror and study that entity that's staring back at you. I want you to look at those eyes. I want you to look at the nose. If you have wrinkles, moles, whatever they are, that human form, but particularly I want you to look into the eye, because that's your universe. And in that universe is where you should begin your love. So love yourself, because once you love yourself, as she just said, then you have it abundantly available to spread to everyone else. And also in that vein, treat each other justly. If you can communicate with someone, if you can communicate not even just with words, but with a gesture, that means they are of your plane. So treat them justly as you would want to be treated. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Emmett. It's been a pleasure.
And with that, till next time, peace.
Peace.